All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I'm your host, Damon, and with me today I have Priscilla Blanchot from Carte Blanche. We're going to be
Yes.
talking about branding strategies that produce results. Thanks so much, Priscilla, for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Damon.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to talk about this because the world of branding to someone like me is kind of like a black box of unknown. So I'm hoping we can take and expose some of this so more people can use it. So let's
Yes.
hear a little bit about your background, Priscilla, because you've been doing this for a little bit and you've been doing it
Yes.
for some pretty big companies. So let's talk about your branding history and how you got kind of doing what you're doing today.
Yes. So I'm originally from France, but I'm now located in the US, in Utah, Salt Lake City of all places. and
Mm-hmm.
I studied. I studied undergrad in Paris, and then found myself in the U.S. in Atlanta. Studied kind of a graduate commercial arts school, and then I started working in New York in an agency, a large agency, and we did have amazing clients. I worked a lot for Unilever, IBM, Victoria's Secret, all these big names, and then found myself in Utah and shifted a little bit. I went from working for an agency setting to in-house, working for a brand that was representing and had a lot of what we call a house of brand, which is a big umbrella company with lots of sub brands of
Mm-hmm.
vitamin and sub and food supplements. Utah being a very dry state, they have a lot of these companies here because it's ideal for storing and working with all these ingredients and herbs.
Okay.
So anyway, I went from agency setting to in-house, and then went back to an agency setting as working with financial industry of all places too, financial companies and the world of finances, and then created my company eh, officially in January of 2020. But with these different type of experiences, I had a chance of seeing and knowing how an agency work versus also how an in-house and the
Mm-hmm.
in-house thinking of managing brands work as well, and
Yeah.
how all these teams within a company function. And that got me to the offering that I like to give my clients right now, which is in reality anybody can do really pretty design, but does it really connect with your customer? Does it really connect with the company purpose and what the company is doing? Because what branding is, it's not a logo, it's not your color, it's not a style guide, it's not your product. Branding is more the overarching ecosystem of the whole company. It's that meaning that people attach to your company, people in your company and people out, your customers, right? So you have to consider these two sides, and every touch point and every effort. Your marketing is part of branding. There is a lot of confusion sometimes. What's the difference between branding and marketing? Branding is sharing that love, is constructing, is all these different efforts, this culture and this idea of the company. The marketing are the actionable steps that you're going to use and you're going to do to promote that meaning and that feeling and the values and the culture and so forth. So that's the big difference. And so the world of branding has evolved a lot. A lot of people are much more with the internet and all the information out there. They're much more in tune with what's happening. And now you also, I mean, marketing has evolved as well.
Yeah.
With like just even like the influencers back then,
Mm-hmm.
they're nobodies in reality, and then suddenly they're able to build their own brand and become somebody that has some power and some say that influences in an enough bigger group that people take them seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So that is all what branding is. And so when you do need some branding, or when you want to invest in it, it's really looking at all these little pieces: your customers, your employees, your product, your service, the future of the company, the vision of the company, the evolution of the market within your market where you're at. It's really encompassing all this, anticipating and building on the vision. And so what is very important too is aligning the C-suite or the vision, aligning the team that are working with you. When you have a new employee that comes in your office, I had this where I was like sat in front of an office, and I was at a desk with a computer and just told like, okay, you're going to be doing this and that. I mean, that was it. Like there was no soul, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
like, let us tell you what we are all about, right? And let us meet. I mean, now there's amazing ideas that I hear out there of companies doing to involve their customers and involve their employees with customers, or involve, if there's a very large company, involve employees from one department to another that would never meet.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all thinking of building that feeling and that meaning that the brand is. So that was a long answer to your short
No,
question.
but I was writing a lot of notes during this, because first of all, um, you most people talk about branding, and I think about it when I do. It's like, how do things look?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of feelings do you want to evoke because of the way things look? But what you're talking and just said, that branding is not only how things look, but it's how we act. It's our history, it's our legacy that we want to create, and a lot of other things that it's all wrapped together to create the brand. Is
Yes,
that
and
right?
you got it exactly. And you can see, evidently, we always compare with these gigantic companies because we see them in the news. But when they have a misstep, we hear of them, and then we judge them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
these big companies like Johnson and Johnson and the Starbucks and the Amazon and so forth, anything they do, they're analyzed by media. They are reacted, their customers react. And now with social media, with also, don't you think that we are bombarded with anything you do now, you're asking to review, how many star would you give us? Like this is branding. This is being in direct contact with your customers and getting the feedback live, in a sense of
Yeah.
their experience and how they've liked it. Um,
Yeah.
but so what's important is to take every step in a meaningful way. It's important. I don't think it. That's where it complicates a lot, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't realize that maybe one action might have a snowball effect. So you want to
Mm-hmm.
be meaningful and think ahead before you maybe add a process to your onboarding or whatever that can be. Um, Everything has a repercussion in your market.
Yeah. Well, you brought up a really good example, like something in your onboarding. You can say, hey, we're going to be onboarding a whole bunch of people this year. Let's automate the training process. So it's videos, and people sit and watch videos, or we get a bunch of YouTube videos and they watch them. But that takes the personalization out of it. It takes the human element out of it. And maybe that can change their perception of your company and their connection with your company, and therefore your brand, the image changes. So
It's exactly.
Yeah.
I know somebody who has a hotel, for example,
Hmm.
and they're having a big problems with their the front desk to hiring somebody and keeping and the station. And
Yep.
so their answer was like, "Oh, let's just put an electronic kiosk because now there's services that do that." But just this action might completely change the feel your clients are having
Hmm.
coming to this hotel. It is it upgrading or downgrading the hotel in the
Yeah.
mind of your customer? Like, so this is one example of many for companies. And I know, managers and CEOs are always all day long making decisions. And
Hmm.
this is where brand strategy is crucial, because when there is a good alignment of your team and there is a solid brand strategy, then these people can make more meaningful, educated decision because they know where the vision of the company is going.
Yeah, that's a great point because if you lay that out and have it well communicated, people are going to understand it. Because I don't think that a lot of companies take the time to talk about their brand as our brand is this, and go through the steps of what it is with each employee to go, this is our brand. We do
Mm-hmm.
this because of this. This is our history. This is why we do. This is what we want to create in the future. And I think that you brought up a great point. If you took the time to develop your brand to that extent,
Yes.
you are going to have a much more cohesive company,
Yes.
not just a brand, but you have a more cohesive company. And your brand, because your brand is, as we talked about, it's all these pieces together. You've tied those pieces together in something that's easy to understand.
Exactly.
It gives these people a framework from within they can operate, because if your brand says we are always going to be honest with our customers, and whatever, that's, people understand what that means. And
Yes.
that there's just things that's really cool how you can tie that all together.
And you have also, you brought in a good point, like for example honesty, right? Like transparency. Like there are
Hmm.
trends that come and go, but there are all trends that stay. And transparency, openness, honesty not only with your customer but also with your employees.
Yeah.
I think with so much of the digital world, anyone can educate themselves on anything. So your disgruntled employee can find a lot of information, and so if there is an honest base, then maybe they understand the decisions that the company are making and why we're making such and such decision, and then they'll feel part of those decisions instead of like disgruntled because I don't know, my
Yeah.
office got moved and I don't have a window anymore.
Yeah. 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 That's a great point. That, and it gives owners, executives, leaders the opportunity, by putting the brand strategy together right, it allows them to share a a common message with everyone,
Yes,
internally and externally, like you said, because it's the overarching ecosystem for inside and out. And in today's world, with the employment as it is, and as hard as it is to find good employees, that branding is what could set you apart and keep people coming to you to work rather than not.
exactly. I bet you, I don't know that, I bet you Nike just has enough people wanting to work for them that they're never really looking.
Mm-hmm. Well, you
Because
make a
they,
great point. You make a great point.
yeah.
It is like that. So so what were some of the things that you learned working with these large companies? Because I mean, when you talk about um, IBM or Victoria's Secrets, Unilever a little bit differently, but what were some of the overarching things you learned? Because I say Unilever a little different because that's got a lot of different products under it. But
It
what
does.
are like the Victoria's Secrets? I mean, because I mean they're a clothing line, they're a special kind of thing, or the IBM, it's kind of a series of products. What
Yes.
are some of the things you really learned from doing branding with those large corporations that are going to spend the time to really think about that?
So it's interesting because the companies, and Unilever is one of them. I spent over a year working on their product. Um, they It was interesting because they have all these different brands, but I
Yeah.
was actually working with the department, the innovation department. They were getting funded by other brands, and we were searching for the next bath and body product. Actually, back then, that's what
Okay.
we were working on, and it was the start of customization. And it's so interesting because 20 years later now, I see on social media all these products, especially in the beauty industry and makeup and
Yeah.
all this, where they're asking these women to take these tests, and then you get like a customized product at your door, and it's supposed to be, so customized to your needs.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. We were doing this 20 years ago. We had developed this concept with Unilever and worked, and so that department, it was about testing and seeing how it worked. And when I think about it now, it's interesting how it evolved, because we conceptualized a whole kiosk, and we had a little test of people answering, what the skin type was, what their hair type was, and so forth. And then it would spit out a little recipe, and then there was
Yeah.
somebody with pumps filling up the bottles, shaking them up, and then we had these little labels. And it was very interesting because originally we said we want to reach women, maybe moms from 30 up, and so forth. And
Yeah.
because it was very kind of like playful, we end up
Yeah.
attracting teenagers, and also because all these teens were a lot more in the malls hanging out
Yeah.
than moms were. So we had to switch the concept and find, and also completely change the look and feel, because before we were very colorful. Then the next iteration, we were more like muted colors. And we spent a year and a half on that concept until Unilever decided that it was not a concept to follow through,
Yeah.
and they shut it down. But they have these big companies, they have funding that they can spend the money to explore these concepts and see, and test the market and see how people react. But it's interesting now, looking back, how the concept is now very interesting and very much in the beauty industry. But it's even worse because now it's all online. But
Yeah.
again, it's the marketing and the influencers that will, and even just the customers that will jump on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook and say, oh my gosh, like, I've taken this test and this foundation is
Yeah.
perfect to my skin, and I don't even understand. Now, AI, also the market, the artificial intelligence, we've done in 20 years like leaps of progress. So that also revolutionizes your market. So I don't know if Unilever specifically has a product that does that now, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
That's one thing too, is when you, so working in an agency with these large companies, you had a team that was doing the brand strategy and the brand thinking with the client before the brief came onto the desk of the designers. So when we got briefed on the project, we knew who they were targeting, what was interesting to them, the market, the competitors. We knew all this. But this is why it's very important to do that background information. This is what I bring in my agency, is doing that background in research and deep analysis. It becomes like a puzzle where you know what you need to do, because the answers are logical, because now you know your market, now you know your competitors, You also have talked about the future of the product or the business, and and where it's going in the market. So you can anticipate what you can. The best, if you don't have this background work, you know that expression of throwing spaghetti at the wall, you're throwing a lot of money.
Yeah.
There is going to be testing no matter what. You need to test to see, at least gather the information, see if your customers are ready for a new product, or a new ingredients or a new look. But you are minimizing the risk from at least analyzing in depth what you're trying to build next.
Yeah, that is interesting because you're testing out these brand concepts constantly, revising before they even start to go to the market overall. So that because go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and everything is always a test. I mean, you can't think that you're gonna bring out a product and then just stay like this the rest of your life and bank from it, right? It's like you're gonna have to bring another product and be innovator and evolve your product, because we are the market, it's going so fast now, so fast.
Yes. So that, and those examples were a lot of B2C clients. Are you helping more B2C clients now, or are you doing B2B and B2C clients?
I'm more doing B2C clients. B2B is the same foundation. You're instead of looking at customers, you're looking at the other businesses you're working with, and you're also anticipating, am I really answering the problem that they have? And is my business, how's my business going to evolve once I have them, for example, right?
Yeah.
And to become, my business becomes, how you say, you can't live without it.
Yeah.
Right.
Become the must have.
Yeah, I think what happens too is, and this happens to all of us, we are too much in our head. So when you have, and I call this brand therapy. You have somebody outside of you that knows little about your history and hasn't gone through it with you, so they can ask meaningful questions to really see, what have you learned, where's your head out and at, and where's the head of the company at, right? Like, where are you going, and where you really mean to go, and is your employees and the rest of the team in that same track with you? Sometimes departments don't even have time to together, right? Taking that time is important.
Yeah, and you touched on a little bit. You mentioned this on your website. You talk about transformative brain therapy. So, or brand therapy, not brain therapy, brand therapy. Can you explain that a little bit? You started there. So, what do you mean by that? Because brand therapy is not a concept that I'm familiar with.
So often you work with, there is in the team, there's always the one person that has been there the longest, right? And very often it's the founder, it's the original, or it's somebody that inherited from the family, or whatever the case may be. So it's very personal to them. And I'll take the analogy of a house, right? When you live in your house, you customize it your own way, you kind of make it your own, right? And then somebody else will come, if you put it on the market, and they'll be nudging here and there, and then they will have another vision, right? So when you're in a company and you're so involved in it, you have this emotional attachment, it is hard to take some hard decisions. Sometimes it is hard to realize that maybe you as the owner had a specific idea, but the rest of the team wants to take it somewhere else, or are in disagreement, and so the or also you have to make a decision as to, okay, this product that we launched with is no longer a popular product and we should let it go because we've evolved to something else, or our clients are asking to go to something else. So that is where the therapy comes. I often have clients that it gets emotional sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like you said, this could be a legacy product that's been theirs for a very long time, but the market has changed.
Yes.
And they're so you're helping them then understand how their brand needs to evolve or the products need to evolve to meet the real market.
Well, and I yeah, and they actually through the workshops, they get there themselves in a sense. I'm just
Okay.
there as a guide, where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
what are we trying to do? What are we? What has worked? What hasn't worked? What do we want more of? What's the exit strategy of your company? Like
Mm-hmm.
writing, imagining the end, how you want to exit. Like
Yeah.
what are you envisioning, and then kind of go backwards from there, because this is your ultimate goal.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what that in what we do,
Yeah.
that kind of therapy is very common. We have to say, okay, how do you want to exit? Whether it's value, it's time, it's, what do you want it to look like? Who do you want us to, succeed or sell the company to? You really have to understand that. And similar to a product or brand change, um, you really have to think about that. It's a big question. It's a big question.
It is a big question, and I don't know if you've thought of your exit, but I don't have a clear answer to my exit yet.
Oh yes, we have. So that's one of the things that we get asked all the time, and we have. So that's
Yeah.
good.
That's good. And you have your
Yeah,
plan.
yeah, we do. The What are some of the common branding challenges that you see companies make, or
um
challenges that you see companies facing? Excuse me, I used the wrong
Facing,
words.
yeah. Or sometimes they make a decision without having thought everything through,
Hmm.
and then kind of backfires at them, or they will uh, sometimes not even address a problem, and then that will become a bigger issue. There
Okay.
is solutions to every problem. You have to just think it through. But branding issues too. I mean, a pitfall that sometimes will happen is they'll be influenced by the market, and you've seen this again. Always taking the big examples, because those are the ones in the media that everybody can
Yeah.
relate to. But we've seen evolution of logos, like Google's logos
Yeah.
evolved, um, Gap, Starbucks, I mean, so forth. Nike's logo has withstand for a long time now with
Yes.
swoosh, right? So one of the pitfall I see is that companies will want to be more trendy, but they'll go too far, where very quickly that visual trend will go out of style, and then they will have to spend the money for nothing. So um, you need it's hard to get a very long lasting logo, but
Yeah.
you can't a pitfall too is to change too much, and then people can't
Yeah.
recognize you, whereas the brand awareness is gone, because suddenly, oh, perfect example, I don't know if you remember, this was a few years back. Tropicana is known for the packaging with the orange, and then the straw in the orange.
Yeah. Yeah.
They went very modern, very clean, and they removed that. They went from like their plastic bottle with the green lid to a
Yeah.
cardboard bottle, and the lid had like it was kind of it was in plastic, but it was representing half of an orange. Anyway, the design, check it out online, the rebrand of Tropicana that failed. The design was so far from what it was that people didn't realize it was the same product, and they
Oh,
lost customer on it because it was just too far out. So this is a pitfall, is to not get yourself too influenced by trends. It could be very hot at the moment, but you
yeah,
need to stay true to what your customers know who you are for. So that's a big pitfall.
that is. Be true to what your customers know you for.
Yeah, exactly.
You can write that down. That's a great example. Um, because yeah, you think Google's done it several times in the last 5 years. They've adjusted their logo, adjusted their
Yeah.
logo, adjusted their logo. It's kind of like, and the thing to me is, yes, you could tell if you were a designer looking at it, but overall, did it really do anything?
No, but you see, for example, Starbucks, if they went away with the mermaid, they would lose their customers, right? So that is something they can refine her as much as they can, but
Yeah,
she will be their constant icon for a long time.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. You see the mermaid with the green and white, and you know what it is.
yeah,
I
exactly.
see it in my head, and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. And that's the thing too. A good brand, I would say Nike is a great brand because they have withstand the times,
yeah,
and their tagline, just do it as well, has withstand the
yeah,
time. I will say something that's very important to me too, in branding, and I think a lot of people would agree, is a good name. um, but I think your companies are all pretty established, but a good name is very important. If you have something that is too long, or acronyms that are not resonant, like IBM became IBM because it was international business machine. That is just such a mouthful to say.
yeah,
But now we are. It takes more time to create brand awareness with an acronym, because people hear, HBCA, and they'll be like, what is that, right? And then little by little, after hearing it, it'll finally sink in. But if you have a name that is recognizable, that is short, that you can also be memorable in some way, and create that brand around it, that develops these easy ways for people to remember,
yeah,
that is something that will always stay with your business. So it's a very important
yeah,
aspect that people might not think of it all the time.
yeah. Well, because it's an afterthought a lot of times.
It's a what? Sorry.
It's an afterthought.
It's
They
just
don't think about, yeah, it's like, oh, what should we call the business? And they go, oh, let's put three names on the wall and flip a coin and see which one wins.
Yes, and that's unfortunate. I had somebody contact me once, and I wanted to he wanted a service, and I was looking, and I said, "Oh, you do this?" And he's like, "Oh no, we get this a lot, but no, we don't do that." And it was his name that was misleading.
Yeah,
And I said, I told him, I don't think you like to hear this, but I think you need to change your name before it's too late, because if you already
yeah,
know that you're getting the reaction from the clients, why keep in this wrong direction?
yeah,
Readjust, right? Well, that's always what we're doing. We're like readjusting
yes, yes.
until
That's a
you
great
are
name.
the Nike of the world.
Yeah. Well, you bring up, I mean, Nike, as you think about it, I mean, they have stood the test of time.
Yes.
There's a few of them. I mean, I think Target hasn't changed a whole lot. Walmart's changed. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
huge brand, and they've done a lot of brand work. And you just go through the big companies, like you said, and
Yeah.
some of them change a lot. Some of them have stayed pretty solid, but the majority keep changing to change with the times, I think. But yeah,
Yeah.
Nike is just the what's another one you can think of like Nike that's just stayed the same forever?
Oh, gosh, they've all well, it's, I mean, the logo is still pretty recent, but we're talking, yeah, 20 or something years. But I don't know, because you look at Instagram has evolved,
Yeah.
a craft has evolved.
Yeah. It's just
I
hard to
mean,
find them. They're
even
just,
Unilever has evolved. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's hard to
Delta,
go. Yeah. Yeah.
well,
There's
which
just,
shows you that branding is not static. You have to evolve in your market. Like the biggest, the most, the in reality, the most is evolve over the years, right?
yeah. 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 They do. They do. So it is really kind of a unicorn.
It
Huh.
is, yeah.
That's interesting. So then a lot of times, well, first of all, what are some bad brand examples? Now you talked about one when the name didn't describe a company,
Oh gosh,
what they actually did, but
I try to forget these. I don't know, because this would be more like obscure, because usually if they fail, then you don't hear of them. But I will tell you, in the world of startups, if you have a bad name and you're looking for funding, or and a bad
yeah,
brand, then you can go in for a presentation, but then the next guy behind you will have a great name and something witty, and it will be a
yeah,
cool presentation, and there's a clear winner. So that's the power of design and naming for you. So I
yeah,
don't have a bad name that I would think
yeah.
of, but
The
so I
importance
will
though.
tell you the trick of a name too is, if you're too narrow, then you stuck yourself in a in an area. For example, the Dollar Shave Club. So they got overnight fame because of
Yeah,
their amazing advertising, right? With this guy that was going, I
yeah,
mean, it was the owner and the founder, right? In such a
yeah,
funny way. I mean, they were the instigator of that style of advertising, because after you had like all the copycats. But the
yes, yes.
problem with the Dollar Shave Club is that, what does the name say? It's a shave club,
Dollar Shave Club.
right? Like, then you got Harris behind that. I don't know if it's a sub brand, but Harris came in and competed right with them with shaving tools. But then they offered, hair
Yeah,
products and soaps and all sorts of health and beauty products. And the Dollar Shave Club is still seen as just a shaving club.
mm-hmm.
So when this happens, then you have ways. Then you create this house of brands, where you then develop another brand name. But for it to be attached to the Dollar Shave Club, that's still a tough one. And
Yeah,
he had a great idea. He went all in on this hunch and built a great company. But then he got stuck with this name. Everybody knows him now. There's definitely brand awareness,
yeah,
but he's now stuck with that name. So his only choice is to just create other companies to expand.
yeah, yeah. That's cool. It's a great example because you really need to think about today and into the future.
And into the future. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Hmm.
that is a fun, and also something on, if you're first in the market doing something, then right away you're going to come on top of people's brand recognition. So he was the first to do these fun advertising, and after you had
Mm-hmm.
all these people copying, so he can be proud of that because he was the first in that. So this is where, like, that brand thinking, that brainstorming, and that brand therapy first to see where you're at, because sometimes your origins is what is important to bring back up front.
Yeah,
And you just kind of forgot them because they're with you for so long. But that's where that the golden nugget is that original story. And maybe this is what will bring you up in people's memory. This is a way to maybe pivot your brand and do something completely new within your market. But it doesn't come on its own. You have to do the work to get there.
Yeah, I'm writing this down because you talk about sometimes the origin should be brought to the front, and that is key because I think as over time people can get on, the brand, the company moves, but like you said, sometimes starting back at the beginning or bringing that to the front, as you said, is
Yeah,
is where the real value is in that brand and bringing
yeah,
the legacy and
yeah.
things like that.
And I
And when
think
you,
that is, to me, I don't want to call it a trend because I think it's staying, but the or with climate change and with fossil fuel and renewable energy coming back and this whole discussion and political situations, that I do think that legacy origin things going back to nature, this is a trend that is staying because we are all concerned. We only have one planet, right? So we're all
yeah,
concerned about what's going to happen with this. So if a company now brings in these values and these concerns, I think that's already helping them level up their brand into this market that we're getting into. The new
hmm
generation, they are asking for that. So it's important for companies to work on this and leverage this. And that kind
hmm
of comes full circle with transparency, right? So
yeah,
if you can, if you're a manufacturer of something and you can think ahead of like the full cycle of your product all the way through how to dispose of it in a meaningful way, that is already exposing your brand. Now you can market this and just from them that start having clients that are interested in your product, because there are more and more of these clients, no
hmm
matter what the product is, like, how is this gonna my consumption, how's my consumption going to affect the earth, is gonna be the
hmm
new thing.
that's a great point. Let me write that. So as you're doing this,
Hmm.
what are how do you really I when you're talking about brand and you're talking about logos, this has always been interesting to me as to how a logo can exude feelings, how the colors, the shapes, the styles, all that. I mean,
Well,
is that just a feeling, or is that, I mean, or there's
well,
science behind it? I just don't. I know
yeah.
the science behind color, but that's really the only thing I've ever.
There's science behind colors, right? Like,
Yeah,
and also let's not forget, if a company is international versus just local, right?
yeah,
Because red in the US is power, but it could
power. Yeah,
also, red in finance is bad because then there's
yeah,
something wrong, right?
yeah.
But then in China, it's life, right? So you have to. This is also comes with the
Wow.
brand strategy. You have to think, where is your business currently at? Is
Yeah.
it going to do business in other places in the world? And we need to anticipate, to consider this, and that gets really complicated after,
Oh yeah.
because then you need to analyze, in each country and each
hmm
culture, what are the meaning of colors. But designers are trained for that. um, the thing also is to take in consideration your competitive landscape. um, if you have a competitor that uses red and you're going to start using red, then you're starting to what we call brand confusion, right?
Yeah.
So you want to say, okay, well, I'm going to be different, but I'm not just going to take purple then, because why am I taking purple? Like, we need to look into what makes sense between the name, what the value of the company is, uh, the market, the competitor, and that. And this is kind of an all overarching. What I call, it's mattering in your market. It's like
Yeah.
you're taking all these different observations, and then you're coming to a conclusion. And that's when I was telling you earlier, it kind of becomes a puzzle where you're like, we shouldn't be red and we shouldn't be purple. What are other colors we could be? What other maybe sub brands we're going to build? And
Yeah.
and in this case also your product, depending what you are selling and representing, then you can't, it becomes an equation of like, okay, we should go with yellow, for example.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what's interesting is if you can take your leadership team through this decision, then it becomes a lot more powerful for them because they understand that decision. And that is what is so important, to just the transparency and involving everybody. Evidently, it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a time where, the C-suite didn't want to know about the nitty-gritty decisions. But I think that now they're a lot more in tune with what's happening, and a brand strategy becomes guiding principles for all your other decisions. It becomes a foundation, and then from there you can make more educated decisions. So every department can make more educated decision. Marketing department understands too. There's a lot of overlap with brand strategy, but the marketing people are always thinking of an action step. We want our client to click on the button or to go on this website or to do this. And on the brand, we're going to say, okay, how we can develop any sort of imagery so that we actually call people in. Oh, I want to learn more about this. So that's imagery, and obviously messaging as well. The more intentional your messaging is, and the more you start just bringing people in.
Yeah. Wow. This is incredible. We're running up to time here, Priscilla, but learning about brands and branding and how these branding strategies how they can really produce the results. It's been awesome talking to you, because I've learned a tremendous amount here about the branding is really an overarching thing. It's not just a logo. It's not just a feeling, but it's about, how you do business. Yes, it's the colors you use. Yes, it's the way you treat people. It's the way customers, suppliers, and employees all interact. And it's an overarching thing, which is so important because it's kind of a guiding light for everybody that interacts with the organization.
I like that, guiding light.
All right. I actually said something that made sense today. This is great. So this guiding light, but then you turn around and you go, the name, like you brought up the Dollar Shave Club, that anybody that's thinking about, starting a company or potentially wanting to rename their rebranding, it's like, wow, you really need to think about this name, because there's, some people, I've been around people that like to name companies like Latin names, just pick Latin names that nobody knows and pick a company like that, right? Or make up a name. And I'm like, whoa, that's really hard to do if you're going to make up a name and do those kind of things. But when your brand, your name, and everything else comes around, this is great information you've been sharing.
And Nike, the name Nike is actually the goddess of victory. Now I can't remember if it's Latin or Greek, but it's the goddess of victory, Nike. So yeah, it was intentional. You don't think it was, but it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another great piece of information you shared today, Priscilla. I am so thrilled that we got this chance to talk. And today on the Face of Business, we've been talking with Priscilla Blanchot from Carte Blanche. Priscilla, where's the best place if somebody wants to get a hold of you and talk more? What's the best place to get a hold of you?
Two spots. I'm on LinkedIn under Priscilla Blanchot. And then I am also at wearecarteblanche.com.
Very good. So Priscilla Blanchot, wearecarteblanche.com. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks everyone for listening today. Thank you, Priscilla.
Well, thank you, Damon. This was really a pleasure. I really enjoyed myself too. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Yes. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for being here. We will be back again with other great guests sharing information that hopefully helps you out and gives you some direction. Thanks, everyone.